Okay. Here outside for the knife part. Here's what we're going to do for the knife. This is a sharpening stone. This is an official Scout Swiss Scout knife. One of the knives I highly recommend for the young boys when we first get it. This is my personal, not multitude, but lock blade knife. And this is spring assisted. Please, I recommend young boys do not use this one on camp outs as much. This one I use on camp outs a lot, and I highly recommend it. When opening and closing a knife, always have it away from you and down when opening. Same thing with closing. And one more knife. This is a knife I made personally myself at a camp out at summer camp. Not recommended for camping out, but me, I bring it anyway for personal use. Don't. I don't see any big knives, K-bar knives the boys using in the camp out. That's not really they need. Well, since I'm out here, let's do sharpening them. This is my butterfly sharpening stone, which is a whetstone, W-H-E-T-S-T-O-N-E. When sharpening, always put the blade in a little bit of an angle. But not all the way up, not too high, but a little bit of an angle, just like that. Now, when sharpening, sharpen away from you. We recommend the boys do this. Switch hands to get the other side. To get the other side. Always switch hands. Me, I've been doing it long enough I can go out and back in because I have control over my knife. So, that's how you sharpen a knife. When passing a knife, always hand it to them closed. It's recommended. Some of us can pass knives with open, but I recommend keeping it closed. When you hand it to the person, hand it to them, make them say thank you. Sorry for the shaking hand. Make them say thank you. Wait for them to say thank you. Then when they give you the knife, have them say the same thing. Now, since I'm out here, eventually you're going to make a fuzz stick and a tin stick. When doing it, let me adjust the camera. Alright, now when doing it, always, cut away from you. You're going to take one end of the stick and you're going to keep sharpening until you make a point on the end. On the other end, you're going to cut a little wedge. Just like that to make a little wedge. Now if you got to turn it into a fuzz stick, take the stick, dig in the wood, and you curl it up. Just, to show you that little fuzz. Oops, messed it up, so let's try it. Just like that. And you make that fuzz like that, and you just keep going all the way around. Alright, I'm back inside now. Now let's in this handbook right here, shows the 3 knives I highly recommend for the boys when they first get knives. I highly recommend these, including the one in the middle. So I highly recommend they use it on a camp out more than anything. Now, like I said, I'll use something like this knife on the camp out more than anything. This one, I'll end up using it at this kind of knife be at the jamboree, because we hardly don't even have to worry about surviving or anything, but it's a lot of easy access. But anywho, let me open the book here to the about the uses of the knife. I'm going to read it out. It says, always keep a knife blade closed except when you are going to use them or cleaning the knife. Have only the blade open. Only have one blade open at a time. Always cut away from yourself and never towards yourself. Otherwise, if the blade slips, and you may be injured. Close the blades before you pass the knife to someone else. I highly recommend that. Keep your knife sharp. A sharp blade is easier to control than a dull one. I happen to agree with that. Obey all regulations about carrying knives in public places, including your schools and on airplanes. Okay. Scouts and parents, I highly recommend, if you're going to bring your knife with you when you're going on a plane, put it in your suitcase with your regular luggage. I highly recommend that. It's a lot easier to deal with than trying to go through security. Trust me on that. Now when it comes to schools, do not take the knife into school at all, because they don't allow you to have a knife, because you'll be considered as carrying a weapon. But however, if your troop or pack meets at that school, if you go to that school and your troop or pack meets at that school for their meetings, inform the principal. Inform your principal or one of your counselors, so they can inform the security if they got security at your school, so they'll know that the adults and the scouts and that pack or troop that are meeting at that school will have knives and tools in their hand, so there won't be any disgruntled or concerns. Okay. A blood circle. Let's go over a blood circle real quick. Oops. A blood circle is when a scalp, some of them do it open, which is a good idea, but I recommend doing it closed. Take the knife, you point it out in front of you, and you swing around to your right, you switch hands, swing it around to your left. Then bring it in front of you, bring it up, and bring it all the way in the back. And that's what your blood circle is. Or should I say, a safety circle. Cleaning the knife. Handbook gives a good basic explanation about how cleaning the knife. So read over the handbook or go to the manufacturers who made the knives website and they'll recommend what cleaners and stuff you should use to clean your knife. Now, if you use your knife as part of your cooking utensils, it's going to have food and all that stuff on it. Go ahead and wash it with the hot water and soap. Clean it just like you're cleaning your other dishes. Now, the first aid. If a scalp gets cut with the knife, if the sharp knife is a lightly cut, you can rinse that off, put proper medication and a band-aid on it, and leave it alone. You will feel it throbbing, you will feel it healing. And that's going to make the boy or girl, or even any adult, want to try to gnaw on it, try to scratch it, whatever. Don't. Just ignore it and go on about your day. But now if that sharp knife and you cut real deep and there's a chance you could actually cut off your finger, those you want to clean it up, take the part of that finger and everything to the doctor. If you cut your finger off, straight to the hospital, and they can determine if it's a good idea to sew it back on or not. Also, if it's a very deep cut with the knife, seek the nearest medical facility as possible to get it cleaned up, and if it turns out you have to go to the hospital to get it stitched, then go get it stitched. Now let's try this one more time. When you use a knife, make sure you form a blood circle. When handing a knife, hand the knife closed. Always say thank you, or wait for the person to say thank you if you're handing them a knife. Again, when opening and closing a knife, always open it down and away from you at all times. And one more thing about the do's and the don'ts about this knife is, do not put it in the fire and do not throw knives. If you put these kind of knives in the fire, including this kind of knife, the blade is tinted, the heat of the knife can melt it. The only knives that can survive that are K-bars and big hunting knives, unless you're doing that to heal a wound. But anytime these kind of knives, they're tinted. The heat can melt them and bend them and screw them up. And when it comes to the throw knives, your base scout camp will have an area marked off and some rules and regulations about throwing a knife, because they got specialized throwing knives for that. And when you're sharpening, when you're sharpening with the knife, again, here's my whetstone. One more time. When sharpening with the knife, always sharpen away from you. Always sharpen away from you. Me, I can pull in. always sharp and away from you. Next, when it comes to safety knives, always make sure no one's in your blood circle, like I showed you here earlier in the video. Always keep it away from you. Now, parents, your role is to work with your scout with the knife. Make sure they understand the proper way of sharpening. Work with them about sharpening it, and working with about passing the knife, opening and closing the knife, and about the blood circle. That's what you're going to be working with your children or your scouts. And oh, one more thing for first aid. If you cut yourself with a dull knife, that's going to be a real bad deep cut. Get to the hospital as soon as possible to get it cleaned out. You may end up having to get a tetanus shot. Next. Yeah, but go over a little bit of the first aid stuff too that I discussed in this video. And like I showed in the video earlier, to make a fuzz stick and a tin steak. The fuzz stick, when you take the stick, make the fuzz stick, you dig in the stick so you can make some curls form up around the stick to make your fuzz stick. And cut a pointing end, because that will allow you to, and then stab in the ground so you can start your campfire and build your fire to make it bigger. But for a tin steak, you cut a point on one end and then knock out a simple little wedge on the other to make yourself a tin steak. And parents, you're going to work with your fellow scout, your son and daughter, or both, on making the tin steak and a fuzz stick, which is your fire starter. Alright? So feel free to go back through all these videos again for the knife to get a better understanding what you're going up against. If you have any issues, take your time, feel free to rewind and go back. This includes this session on Totinship 101 on how for the use of the knife. Let's get out there and have some fun.